Hello and welcome back to Enginomics. I'm Hank. I know it's been a little bit since I've sat in front of the camera, but I'm really excited to bring you this old interview that I had with Ross Tessien. Ross is an entrepreneur out of California and has a lot of experience with electric vehicles, Tesla, and especially with tunneling technology. This is all technology that I've covered before on my channel, and I'm really excited to bring you this interview with him. Ross is super optimistic about Tesla technology, just a fair warning, but I'm really excited to show his perspective on the electric market, where tunneling could potentially take transportation as a whole in the US, and much, much more. Please enjoy this interview with me and Ross. Thanks.
Thanks for agreeing to do this and coming on. I mean, thank you for reaching out, of course, and agreeing to do this for sure.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I did go through the two videos you had and, jotted down little things that I am sure are errors or it's, what's really weird is the information that's being put out on the airwaves by almost everyone is wrong, and for a very self-centered reason. For all of the CNBC and CNN and all the news channels, all the auto companies spend billions of dollars every year. They're number 2 advertisers, and they don't want to lose them.
Yeah, not surprised.
Yeah, and Tesla's killing them. So they're not putting out correct information for the simple fact that if they did, it would basically say, well, Ford and GM are going bankrupt, and they can't say that because those are their biggest advertisers. And even Road and Track magazine, it's like they get their business from all the different cars, not from Tesla. And, that one quote that you had in there, that was just really misleading. So it's really hard to know what to believe unless you are totally into this technology space and you just understand it yourself, what's happening, where things are going and why. Then differently, and you hear all this news coming out and you go, my God, how can they report that with a straight face? Because it's just so obviously wrong. So anyway, that's why I reached out to you, and I've reached out to other people to set the record straight. Although you're one of very few who bother to look into the information. Almost no one bothers.
Yeah, and that's my whole goal, is trying to dive into kind of the details, the truth. A lot of what is out there is I didn't even realize how divisive of an issue this was really before I started making that first video. I thought it was kind of a open and shut kind of case, and there's a lot of nuance to it for sure. So I'm really glad that you're able to kind of come on and give like your perspective of what's going on here, because like you said, there's a lot of interest here. The transportation sector is a huge maybe $1 trillion industry. So there's going to be a lot of interest on that.
Yeah, it is. And what's amazing, people say Tesla doesn't advertise. Well, that's not really true. Tesla has the biggest advertising budget of every automaker out there. It's just they're not paying a penny for it. It's all of us doing videos about Tesla and about electric cars and stuff. There's so many channels that are dedicated to Tesla and putting information out there. And then the stocks up there on the top, it's like there's so much.
It's ridiculous a little bit, but and it gets clicks too. I mean, I don't want to say that's why I made the video, but I saw it as an interesting issue, and then I said, well, people like to consume this kind of stuff too. So whether I'm making the video for the right reasons, you can debate that, but I'm really trying to look out there and see, and because they're doing things that are interesting, especially just Elon Musk and his companies. They're doing things that we haven't really seen in the transportation sector. So it's interesting to kind of speculate for sure, because a lot of it's not really set in stone yet. A lot of it is speculative, and having the big market cap that they do right now, like they have a lot of potential. So it's interesting to kind of, and people like to try to slay the beast, if you will. So they got a target on their back too.
They do. They do have a target, but I think they shouldn't have a target really, because everything they're doing is for the betterment of humankind and society. It's like they're not out there doing things reckless or dumb, although that's what people say all the time. But what happens is the media is twisting everything that happens into a negative light, and it's, you know, you can do that. I mean, I never per se wanted to be a lawyer, but when you are a lawyer, you're trained to look at the facts, and then you pick out the facts that support your case. And the two cases, defense and prosecution, are diametrically opposed. They're exactly the opposite, and yet you can use the same set of facts to prove either of those two cases. You just leave out certain facts and you accentuate others. And so that's what the media is doing. It's like, you know, the two guys that got killed in Texas, for example. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you know what was put out there in the media, but the reality is it took 3 minutes to put the fire out, not hours.
Yeah, and they just stood by afterwards.
They stood by to make sure it didn't catch back on fire, because that's what you do with lithium ion batteries. You check them out. Other thing is, batteries catch on fire. Well, gasoline cars catch on fire 20 times more often than battery cars. And battery cars, even when there's a fault, even if there is a fire, you can still drive the car for a couple of miles. So you could drive it out of the tunnel. And, you know, for good reason, you were concerned about safety in the tunnel, is why mm-hmm. I was bringing this up. And with tunnels, I mean, I have my ideas and Boring Company has theirs. So, you know, in Las Vegas will have theirs. Different people handle it different ways. But you could very easily come in with a tow truck that's just a forklift on the front and just drive in, pick the flaming car up and carry it out of the tunnel and deal with the fire outside of the tunnel. You're not going to fight it in the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just trivially simple to get the car the heck out of there. Either it'll drive itself. I was impressed. I watched some of the videos of the Loop when they were doing the test day, and they proved that they can do more than 4,400 passengers. So that's already established.
I did see that, yeah, in the past. I think it was like in the past week or something like that. It's very recent.
Yeah, they just did it. They did a test, and
I'd be curious to see how they carried that out and everything, because I mean, a lot of that came down to just there only being 3 people. A lot of the doubt, at least, came from there only being 3 people per Tesla. So that's where a lot of the criticism came from, myself included, because I mean, I see just a regular car and I think, well, that's not exactly mass transportation.
That's true. And we'll get into that a little bit later, because I am patenting tunnel transportation.
Yeah, and I definitely want to ask you questions about that, because that sounds really interesting.
You know, I have issued patents. This isn't like a pastime or a dream. It's like, this has been my daily meat and potatoes work for the past 5 years. So, but what you need to know is that if you have a train or a bigger vehicle, it takes longer to load and unload than it does a small car. And a small car can go point to point. So you can pick someone up wherever they are, wherever they want to be picked up. They can, you know, in the future, when you have robo-taxis, which we're not there yet, but in the not too distant future, when we have that, it will, you'll basically just on an app, just dial, I want to ride, and the car's going to come to you and take you where you want to go. And you can't get that with a bus or a metro or anything today. The cost is lower. The cost per mile is lower. And the utility of it is far superior because you're going exactly where you want to go instead of having to walk a mile to the metro station or something. And then you go and you get out and you walk a quarter of a mile to where you really wanted to go. So it's really going to be an awful lot better than what we have today. Sort of like I was trying to find a way to communicate this. And I don't know how good of an analogy it is, but the idea that came across my mind is, imagine that you went out onto the Great Plains in 1850s, and here's the people in their Conestoga wagon pulled by ox, and they're walking across the 3,000 miles of the U.S. to get to California. And you go to them and you tell them, well, in the future, people are going to pay for the privilege of sitting inside of an aluminum can that gets them all the way across the country in 4 hours. And they call you nuts,
Mm-hmm.
And yet that's what we do in airplanes. We go and climb into a big aluminum can. And so what I would suggest is that tunnels in the future are going to be everywhere. When you see a freeway with stop and go traffic on it, there will be a tunnel under that freeway, and there will no longer be stop and go traffic on the surface. You'll have people underneath traveling at 120 miles an hour point to point.
Do you think that largely comes from just the self-driving portion of that? Because it was unclear in your emails if that could happen just by humans driving 120 miles an hour, because that sounds potentially dangerous.
Humans cannot do it. They would
Okay.
be mesmerized and fall asleep. So
yes.
Absolutely it will be autonomous. So in that sense, it's very much the same thing as being in a plane. In fact, my patents, one of the criteria is a barrier at the entry, because you can't have gasoline cars inside of the tunnels because they emit exhaust. And that's the whole reason that the Boring Company showed those sleds, because they were electric vehicle sleds. And in that way, you could ferry gasoline cars through the tunnels. But that will never be done. It was their first idea, and it was an idea because there was 0. I don't know, some teeny tiny number of electric vehicles, and essentially all vehicles out there were gasoline. So they were thinking, well, we have to build a tunnel that caters to gasoline vehicles, but the only way we can do it is if we put them on sleds. So that's the origin of that idea. But the idea is just a dumb idea.
Yeah, that was part of my criticism in that first video, is just the iterations that they had were like the sleds. It's like you're trying to reinvent the subway, and that's a lot of the criticism that I see as well, is they're trying to reinvent the subway, which, I mean, I'm sure you've heard a million times.
Yeah, I mean, they're fumbling and trying to invent something, and they go to a town hall meeting where they talk to a bunch of people, and the people criticize them. Oh, but you're not doing public transportation. Well, I can tell you right now, public transportation is stupid in the tunnel concept. And the reason is, tunnels are going to be for any vehicle. So it could be a public bus or a public robotaxi or whatever can use the tunnel. Trucks are going to use a tunnel. Cars are going to use a tunnel. Everyone's going to use the tunnels. You'll build some tunnels that are smaller for just cars, where there's a lot of commuting, but like cross country, LA to New York, you need to get trucking in there. So the ones that I've designed are 12 feet wide by 15 foot high inside. And so these are, a regular 12-foot freeway lane and set up to carry semi-truck traffic. It'll be different kinds of trucks, but and everything will be electric. And the tunnels will have like a 90-mile-an-hour tailwind, so that you have almost zero aerodynamic drag, which will more than double your range.
Okay.
So pretty, and at 120 miles, you'll be going 120 miles an hour and have double the range that the car has on an open freeway at like 60 miles an hour.
So you're saying still have the lithium ion batteries powering it though, correct?
Yeah, any batteries powering lithium ion are fine.
Okay. But going back to your statement there that you said that public transportation is stupid, do you think that public or personalized transport will ever go away in form of like a, I don't know, maybe a service, kind of like an Uber that you would call autonomous taxis to? Because I think that's a lot of the concerns that come with this is that it's enabling just continuing personalized vehicles. And a lot of my generation, at least, a lot of people don't want to own a car, really.
If you live in a city, you don't need to own a car. I live out in the country, and you need to own a car. I mean, a robotaxi is not going to make it here when I need to go somewhere, unless there were a huge number and you have them spread out all over the place where the utilization is really low. I'm not going to say it won't happen, but robotaxis are better suited. Let's just leave it at that. They're better suited for urban areas with high density people. When you're out more in the country, which is a lot of people all across the middle part of the US, they don't live in big cities. They're out on farms and ranches and whatnot. And for that, yeah, you're definitely going to have private transportation. But there will be millions of robotaxis or electric taxis in the heartland of, in the urban centers and stuff. And in those areas, which are the places you have the metro or the subways and buses and things like that, these vehicles are better than buses or trains, or, trains are just horrible. Think about it. You've got to go to the train station, park your car, pay for parking, walk in, wait for the train to leave. And then you ride the train, and it goes at about 45 miles an hour on average on a cross-country trip. It's just horrible. Are
you talking primarily with U.S. trains?
Yes, but even if you're European, TGV in France, or Shinkansen in Japan, those trains move fast. And if your goal is to go city to city, that works well. But if you need to go out into the country, you need a vehicle to get out into the country. And the other thing is you can only go on the schedule of the train. So like I live where are you located?
I'm currently in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, okay. So you're just over the hill. I'm in Grass Valley.
Okay. Wow. Nice.
Yeah. So, we could bore a tunnel from here to Reno and avoid going up and over the pass. For you, it'd be from Reno down to Las Vegas would be an obvious tunnel route. For me, it's Sacramento down to LA. And Sacramento to LA, around 450 miles, is going to be a 3-hour drive at 120 miles an hour nonstop. So it's not airplane speed, but it'll get you there pretty fast. And if you were, I don't know what the price of a robotaxi would be on a long trip. So I guess
I don't think a lot of that is established yet. I mean, you can schedule an Uber from LA to Sacramento, but it's going to cost you a fortune.
Yeah, you could, but a robotaxi is different because it's just cost per mile. And the cost per mile for a Tesla car is somewhere around 10 cents.
Okay.
So 450 miles, it'd be what, $45 for the trip, and you could put 4 people in the car, or 1 or 2 or whatever you wanted. So the car doesn't really care how many people are in it. So be $45 for a trip, and that's reasonable. That's cheaper than you're going to do any other way.
Well, I mean, just to play devil's advocate here, what about like a bus? Because the cost would be spread out throughout the whole bus.
A bus in the tunnel or a bus?
I guess in general, but you said that tunnels are going to allow buses as well.
Sure, but they'll have to be electric, number one, and they'll have to be a different kind of vehicle. See, the highest speed semi trucks or buses are about 80 miles per hour. They don't have tires rated for 120 miles an hour today. So there will be new tire designs that will come out for large vehicles that will take it. And yeah, that could be, but then you're going to need to travel to the bus station in order to get picked up, which I guess you could do a robotaxi to the bus station. And then you're going to have to wait for the bus schedule to come about. And, you know, on a trip down to LA, there's going to be maybe 2 buses per day. Whereas if you're just taking a robotaxi, you go whatever time you want to go. And by blowing air down the tunnel, you just about zero out. I won't say you zero it out, but you cut it in half, more than half. You eliminate the energy cost.
So you're saying having a tailwind, because you mentioned this earlier, having a tailwind behind you that would push you, essentially? That would help with aerodynamics?
It eliminates aerodynamic drag. So today on the freeway, all vehicles are pushing air out of the way in order to move. We don't think about it because it's what we've always done forever, but that's what you're doing. You're pushing the air out of the way. So if you have a tailwind, do you ride a motorcycle ever?
I don't.
Okay, so I used to ride, you know, I had a Honda 750. I would ride cross country. And what we really loved to do was to tail about 15 feet behind a semi truck, just inboard from the edge of the semi truck. And if you're right there, the air is completely still, 0 aerodynamic headwind.
Interesting.
And for a truck on the freeway, approximately 2/3 of the energy expended goes to pushing air out of the way, and 1/3 goes to bearing friction and rolling friction and tire friction. So if you eliminate having to push the air out of the way, you eliminate about 2/3 of the energy cost of travel.
Okay.
That's big.
It's pretty significant.
Yeah, and then if you double the speed to 120 miles an hour, then the power goes up 8 times, but your time of transit is cut in half, so the total energy consumed goes up 4 times. So, and that's primarily aerodynamic because that's the aerodynamic drag, whereas friction, bearings, and things like that are more of a linear change with speed. So they're probably double, whereas the aerodynamics is going to be 4 times the energy. So it's way worse if you're going 120 miles an hour, is a long story short.
Yeah.
And so if you flow air down the tunnel at a high speed, it's as if the vehicle is hypermiling. Do you know that term?
Yes, yeah. It's the optimal speed at which it's getting the best essential gas mileage.
Exactly. So a battery electric car will, to get the longest possible range, it will travel at about 20 to 30 miles an hour, so that aerodynamic drag is essentially 0. And then doing that, well, you almost just about double your range. And so the blowing the air down the tunnel will about double your range. So the Tesla semi-truck has a quoted range of 500 miles. It's going to have more like 1,200 miles in a tunnel like this for cross-country travel.
How do you propose creating that draft in the first place? Big fan?
Blowers.
Okay.
Blowers. And the blowers will be powered by solar and wind. I mean, they'll be powered by whatever local grid is, but increasingly the grid is, I don't know if you know, but in recent years, greater than 50% of new electrical additions have been renewable energy additions. So the whole, and basically we're adding renewable energy and closing down preferentially coal, but it's already to the point that a solar power farm has an amortized cost per kilowatt hour that is down below the cost of natural gas fuel. Like in
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like in Saudi Arabia, at an oil rig, they need electricity to run all of the pumps and everything at the oil rig. It was um, it was less expensive to build a solar energy production than it was to install a natural gas power plant, in spite of the fact that they got the natural gas for free from the oil well.
Huh.
So it makes more sense to install solar.
Yeah, the tides are turning when it comes to energy in the U.S.
Totally.
And that's another big concern with just electric vehicles in general, is where they get their energy from, because an electric vehicle is only as good as where it gets its energy.
Yeah, that's true, but that's kind of a fuddy point that's raised by people attacking electric vehicles. And if you just think in terms of where are we going in the future, it's already the cheapest form of electricity production is solar, and then wind, and then natural gas is third, and coal is horrible. So, I mean, in the future, there will be no gas plants, there will be no coal plants. So it will all be renewable. So we may as well just plan for that future, because that's where we are going to be.
Okay. So just another question then. Where do you see the timeline for tunneling and the electrification of the U.S.'s power grid, and et cetera?
That's a very interesting question. It could happen really fast, and it could take a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
The time I used to, well, I haven't written for a while. I still can. I'm an author at Seeking Alpha, which I don't know if you know that. It's an online blog article space for investors.
Okay.
And I've written a lot of articles. I specialize in writing articles about Tesla and electric vehicles in particular.
Okay.
And and I'm an engineer, and I can make a graph and do things. So anyway, I started studying that question, actually, is like, how fast is this transition going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized is that for every vehicle sold, for every Tesla vehicle sold, like I have a Model Y,
mm-hmm.
and I take people for rides in it. I mean, friends will go for a ride, relatives will go for a ride or look at it or consider. And some of those people are going to buy a new car and will ask me my opinion. And, hands down, the best car on the road today, in my opinion, is the Tesla Model Y. It's got tons of room and fabulous battery and power and everything. So, the in-laws bought a Model 3, and I told them, get with the bigger range, and the Y wasn't out yet when they bought that, but I told them definitely get the longer range. Well, frugal, they got the short range, and then were regretting it because they didn't have enough range out on, I mean, they could go anywhere they wanted to go, but you had to stop and charge more often. You couldn't skip chargers like you can with a larger battery. So I got my Y, and then talked to him. I said, well, your resale value is it's like 90% of your original purchase price, because cars are so much in demand. So unlike a gas car where you lose your whole investment when you drive it off the lot,
well, that's just a sign of the times, correct? Where used cars are going for higher prices right now due to just inflation in general?
No, it's not a sign of the times. It's a very big, I mean, that's true. gasoline cars are selling for higher than they used to, but they still lose like 75% of their value after 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a Tesla loses about 10% or maybe 20% of the value, depends how well you keep it up.
I didn't know that. I know cars are money pits, but I didn't know that electric vehicles are potentially less of money pits.
Oh, they are way less of a money pit. In fact, some of them are, right now, the Model Y and the Cybertruck are appreciating assets. Just about, they're at least break even or marginally money pit, but they're nowhere near like a regular car. And in 5 years, it's going to be interesting. The article I wrote, I projected that for every person who buys a new Tesla vehicle, and I say Tesla because they're just hands down the best electric vehicle out there. I mean, we could talk and compare others. I can tell you about others if you're interested, but just far and away, they're the best, and they're the only ones that consistently have good range over 300 miles, which really you want in order to be able to go anywhere you want. Like, I'll drive from up here in Grass Valley down to a doctor's appointment in Sacramento, and then come back up, and then the next day drive down to Auburn and around and back. And, it's like I have plenty of range. I don't run out of range doing that. And all I do is plug my car into a 110 outlet, same as my phone. So that's all you need to do. People spend more money, but you don't need to. And anyway, for about every person that buys a new Tesla and talks to people, there are going to be about 4 more people that decide my next car is going to be an electric vehicle. They may like the Ford Mach-E or something else better, or they may want to be more frugal and get like a Nissan Leaf or something for around the town travel. But they're going to get, their next car is going to be an electric car. And they may not like the cars that are out there right now. So what they're going to do is wait until a car that they like becomes available at a price point that they like. And so in my article, graphing that out, turning that into an equation and then plotting it, it wound up that around, well, in my article 3 years ago, I projected it would be in 2025. Now I've updated that for myself, and I think it's going to be more like 2026.
Okay.
Gasoline cars will have collapsed to 25 million global sales, and electric cars will have grown to 25 million per year global sales. So that'll be the crossing point. So gas cars are going to be going down, and electric cars are going to be going up. So
do you think that's going to be, do you think that's largely going to be due to Tesla's success, or do you think that the other electric vehicle players are going to play a part in that as well?
I wish they were. As of this point, they all have really poor vehicles, number one. And I mean, some of them have some vehicles that look nice and they perform nice, but the range is subpar.
Is it the range that's the main concern?
Range is one main concern, and charging infrastructure is the other main concern. And Tesla is the only company that has all of the features that you need.
Okay.
And then the legacy car companies have a whole nother thing that almost nobody's talking about, and they should. Some people in the know are talking about it, and that is that their sales, I mean, if you think about it, 3 years ago, their sales were 95 million cars a year globally. And then it was down to about 85 million. And then last year it was 70 or 75 million maybe. And it got blamed on consumer preference shifting to SUVs, and then got blamed on COVID, and right now it's being blamed on chip shortages, and there's some reality to all of these things. but I suspect that these things are being used as kind of a scapegoat to explain why their sales are dropping, when in reality, behind the scenes, what's happening is a number of consumers are shifting their desires. So that's not in full swing yet. And there are people in the group where that's the case. You know, a good number of people say my next car is going to be electric. And a lot of people are out there that don't know that this is happening. And so it sounds like fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that it sounds like fantasy still to the majority of people. But it isn't fantasy because it's just better. I mean, you know, gasoline enthusiasts talk about, oh my God, you have to charge. It takes so long to charge. Well, no, not really. It takes me about 5 seconds to plug my car in when I come home. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I never have to go to the gas station. With the gas car, people have to go to the gas station every week and spend, you know, it's 15 minutes by the time you pull off the road and park and fill up and get back in and get back on the road where you really wanted to be going.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not nothing. I don't do that. I do, you know, 1 minute, I just plug the car in, and every day when I take off, I have a full state of charge so I can go anywhere I want. Very different.
What do you think is the biggest hurdle then in getting these gas car enthusiasts, or just the haters, I guess, on your side?
I think they're just going, you know, one by one, they're going to open their eyes and realize, oh, damn, I was wrong, and this really is better. Some of them are going to go kicking and screaming, I'm not going to do it, you know, but it's a psychological thing. It's not experience, because the experience of an electric car is just immensely superior to a gasoline car. More acceleration, you can do what you want. It's just a really awesome handling car, and you never have to go to the gas station. So I'll tell you what I think is going to be the biggest thing, and this is going to be the downfall. This is why I think all the legacy auto companies are going to go bankrupt, is because Biden's got this new EV tax, and people don't know it, but for the last 3 years, Tesla's been selling at a disadvantage of $7,500 compared to Ford, BMW, VW, because they all get the tax credit, whereas Tesla doesn't, and GM doesn't either. And so American taxpayers have been paying money in tax credits for people to buy foreign car company cars, and it's just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason we should be paying for somebody to buy a VW or a BMW or a Renault or any other car. So with the new tax incentive, all of a sudden Tesla is going to have a $10,000 discount. And they're going, you know, so you take, you know, even a luxury version of a Model 3 at $40,000, take $10,000 off, it's now a $30,000 car. But Tesla is designing new models. A lot of people call it the Model 2. And it's supposed to be, you know, it's hopefully going to be a $25,000 car. But it's not announced yet. The price isn't announced yet. And I suspect that they will build a factory in Austin to build that car now that this incentive is going to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And they will probably build 5 million of those a year.
Has this incentive gone through yet?
It's in the planning phase right now, and it has to be approved by Senate and House and get written up.
Mm-hmm.
It came out of a Senate subcommittee as an approved plan. And it'll have, well, who knows what the final form will be. We don't know that yet. But
Mm-hmm.
the tentative form that's being floated around is to maintain the $7,500 credit for plug-in electric vehicles, which sadly means plug-in hybrids.
Okay.
What I suspect is going to happen from this bill is all of the auto companies are going to want to take advantage of it. And it's easier for them, because they already have them built, to sell plug-in hybrids. And they will qualify for $7,500 of the tax credit, or maybe $4,000 of the tax credit of the original. But then they'll also get another $2,500 for being made in America, and another $2,500 for being union company.
Okay.
GM and Ford, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that GM and Ford are going to be able to get about a $10,000 discount on their plug-in hybrid cars. A lot of people are going to buy them.
Yeah. As someone who needs a car in, I don't know, 5-10 years, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you need a car, and you can buy the full gasoline car and it costs 30 grand, or you can buy the plug-in hybrid equivalent and it costs 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10,000 off. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm in.
And the legacy companies, they're going to do it because those are the cars that they have. They're not good at building battery electric cars.
Not yet, at least. Do you think that they'll catch up to Tesla?
No, I think they'll go bankrupt. Plain and simple. Through this incentive program, they're going to get really good at building hybrids, but if you price them dollar for dollar equally, without the incentive, people don't want hybrids. Why do I want to have to go buy gasoline if I have a plug-in car? It's just dumb.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got a plug, I want to plug it in and be able to go everywhere I want to go.
I would argue for some people, it alleviates a little bit of that range anxiety that people have. Mm-hmm. Like your in-laws who were disappointed that they didn't get the longer range one. So I think that can help a little bit with people, but I mean, it comes down to charging infrastructure.
Not really. It comes down to the size of the battery and charging infra. Yes, it is charging infrastructure, but the only cars that have charging infrastructure are Tesla cars. No one else has charging infrastructure. Mm-hmm. There are a bunch of discrete companies, but they suck.
Yeah.
Walmart has 2 charging stalls. And right now, when none of the other auto companies sell electric cars, they're open, and that works. It's okay.
Do you think there's going to be some sort of universal standard for charging infrastructure? Or do you think Tesla is going to take over that?
I don't know what's going to happen. There will be eventually. There will be eventually, but with plug-in hybrids, what people do is they just run it as a gasoline car. They don't even bother plugging it in. Most people, they have it and they get 10,000 off when they buy that car, but they don't really utilize it that way. That's a study in England, so it's not America. Maybe Americans are different, but I doubt it. Because they have.
Yeah, it's probably the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe people will do it since you really could drive around town. But I fear for the legacy companies, really. I mean, I'm a mechanical engineer. I love engines. Okay, mm-hmm. They're wonderful technology, but they're no longer needed.
It's going to be interesting to see how or if they can pivot, for sure. I'm from the Midwest. I went to University of Michigan. I'm in like a rotational engineer right now. So my last rotation was right in Motor City, Detroit there. So I'm pretty familiar with the whole, I don't know, the optimism that they have there while also having that, I don't know, that dark shadow cast across them, at least the big three automakers there.
Mhm.
So I got friends who work for the companies. They're optimistic, but it'll come down to see if they can really bring in or rein in the electric market, I think.
Well, here's the problem that they face. Sales of gasoline cars are collapsing right now.
Mhm.
And if my graph is right, then by around 2026, gasoline car sales will be down to about 25 million cars. That's their bread and butter profit zone. And so if the cars they build that they profit on disappear and they get replaced by electric cars that they're losing money on every one they sell, that's a recipe for bankruptcy in 5 years' time. And so what's going to happen is they're going to consolidate with one another. It's already started. I forget what company, Stellantis, I think, was the one that, a bunch of companies were put together. But
I think with FCA, Fiat Chrysler.
Yeah, I'm not a super car guy, so
okay, sorry. All good. We can pretend like we know that.
Yeah, I'm not a car guy. I mean, I have rebuilt an engine. I'm a mechanical engineer. I love all this stuff. I shared shop space with a guy that built race engines. So, I know how they bore the engines and machine the valves, and I machine parts for race engine builders, piston vise and different tooling. So I've been to a lot of the trade shows and all kinds of things like that. I love the technology. But when sales of your bread and butter collapse in like a 5-year period of time, you don't have time to adjust. And if you build too many of any model of car, then you wind up with surplus of that car. And now you have to sell it at a fire sale price. But you don't want to sell it at a fire sale price because that undercuts the price that you're selling it at. There's right now tens of thousands of vehicles parked in fields that didn't get sold from 2018, 19, 20. And what they're doing is they are offering to sell those to elderly people, which I managed to get targeted that way now. And I get ads all the time saying, you could buy a brand new, whatever, name your model, at pennies on the dollar, because they got them parked in the fields and they got to get, if they get rid of them, they could do it, but they don't want to sell them to anyone younger because that takes them out of the market at a price lower than they want to get. But someone older is probably not going to buy another car. And so maybe you could convince them to buy another car. So it makes sense. I understand the marketing, but if you don't cut back production faster than demand cuts back, you wind up with surplus. And if you wind up with surplus, that's just deadly as far as your balance sheet's concerned.
So what do you think about, say, like the Ford F-150, for example, right? It's the best-selling car in America.
Yep.
They just released their Ford F-150 Lightning or whatever. You're shaking your head. I'm curious about your thoughts about that, because is that not pivoting towards an electric future?
It is. That and the E-Mustang are, two of the best cars Ford has built. But they're money-losing cars for Ford at present. Although they're going to sell a bunch of them, the problem is that car, well, it only has a 300-mile range, which kind of sucks. I have 2 Tesla Cybertrucks on order.
Okay.
And so one of the patents that I have filed is for an electric fire truck, precisely so it can go down into tunnels and operate and put out fires in tunnels. Okay, so it is the whole safety thing in tunnels motivation. So anyway, I have 2 Cybertrucks on order. So yes, I very closely followed that I watched that whole presentation. I watched 20 videos at least analyzing it. It's got 230 miles of range for the base model. It's got 300 miles of range for the expensive upper model. Tesla has 300 miles of range, and then it has 500 miles of range.
Mm-hmm.
And, if I want to tow a boat, that 300 miles of range turns into 150. And that's not enough to go very far.
Well, I believe that not the Cybertruck, the Lightning, that range was included with like 1,000 pounds of towing.
Yes. No, not towing, 1,000 pounds of weight in the back.
Weight in the back, okay.
But that's not new aerodynamic drag. And remember that rolling friction is only a tiny portion. So that amount of weight addition is like you're adding 20% of the weight of the vehicle. It's not anything. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds impressive, it isn't. And when that thing's towing a vehicle, a boat or whatever it is you're towing, is going to impose a brand new aerodynamic drag on the vehicle, and the range goes down a lot. So that happens with gasoline vehicles too, but you can fill up with gas all over the place. And
Mm-hmm.
and to charge, a truck has a big battery to begin with. And I calculated based on there's a CD, I don't know if you know that, coefficient of drag.
Yep.
Okay, so aerodynamic drag is proportional to CD, the coefficient of drag, times the frontal area of the vehicle. So the Ford F-150 has an enormous frontal area, and it has a horrible coefficient of drag, like 0.45, I think it is, or 5.5, versus the Cybertruck. It looks weird, but it's kind of like, what was it, the F-117 fighter plane that was all angular like that? It
Mm-hmm.
actually has a really good coefficient of drag as long as you put that tonneau cover on. And so it goes through the air far sleeker than the F-150 does. So if you do, and I know the battery size on the Cybertruck, it's either 100 or 200 kilowatt hours, and then they've got the ranges posted. The F-150 doesn't tell you how big the battery is, but I calculated using coefficient of drag differential that the F-150 probably in that 300 mile range has a 230 kilowatt hour battery. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to charge 230 kilowatt hours, I mean, if it takes, for me at a supercharger, it might take me 20 minutes to charge up a 75 kilowatt hour. I'm going to only charge 80% or so to get to the next destination. It's like, once or twice a year on a long trip is the only time I'd ever use it. But to charge up an F-150, boy, you'd be sitting there for a long time.
Because they don't have that fast charging capabilities right now, at least.
Almost none of them. They call them DC fast charging. DC fast charging means 50 kilowatts, whereas Tesla is 130, 150 kilowatts up to 250 kilowatts for the new ones. And like Electrify America, that's at all the Walmart stations,
Mm-hmm.
they say, oh, we have charging up to 250 kilowatts or whatever it is. They might be 300 even for the peak, but they have one of those at a Walmart and then 3 more that are 50 kilowatts. So they just have one stall. If you go to a Tesla supercharger, Kettleman City has like 40 charging stalls. Truckee in between us has like 15 charging stalls. Reno has several stations. You can look them up. But anyway, there is pathetically very little charging infrastructure. And they talk about having thousands of chargers all across the country, but they're almost all 50 kilowatts. At 50 kilowatts, you'd be sitting there for like 3 hours with a F-150 to charge up. So that's the infrastructure Ford has access to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awful. The Cybertruck has access to the better infrastructure. Now, the reality is it doesn't really matter that much, frankly, because
The charging time?
Yeah, because you're not going to do that except 1 week or 2 weeks a year on a long trip.
Mm-hmm.
All your charging is going to be at home. And when you're at home, you just plug in and you have full charge the next morning. So it's no big deal. So 50 out of 52 weeks of the year, it doesn't really matter. But when you go on that long trip and you want to tow the boat, it matters then.
Yeah, when you have to charge.
Yeah, people want to buy a vehicle that's going to be able to do everything for them. So I suspect Ford's going to sell a bunch of them. And, I have a close friend here and we got into talk. He didn't know I had 2 Cybertrucks on order. He was talking about, oh God, that Cybertruck, it's so ugly. Who would want that?
It's a very polarizing design. I'll give them that.
It is very polarizing. But you know what? I could give a damn about the design. If the F-150 had the specifications of the Cybertruck and the Cybertruck had the specification of the F-150, I'd flip. I'd buy the Ford.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about the brand. I don't care about the looks. I care about the function, the performance of it. And the function and performance of Tesla vehicles is just dramatically superior to others.
Do you think then that there's some sort of like almost a walled garden when it comes to Tesla and their charging infrastructure then? Because a lot of the performance that you mentioned there comes down to that charging and that range that Tesla has provided, at least. Do you think that a more unified charging infrastructure would help with that?
If other vehicles had access to the Tesla supercharger network, then a lot of other vehicles would be far more compelling vehicles to own. Mm-hmm. So the Ford Mustang, the Taycan is only, I don't think it's even 200 miles range. It's really low. The Mach-E has pretty good range, but I think it's still like 250 miles range. It's nowhere near the 300, 350 kinds of miles of Tesla. And it matters because if I need to drive down to Sacramento and then come back up, and then I need to drive back down to Auburn and I don't have time to charge, well, I need the range. I need the 300 miles of range.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm not going to drive more than that in a day. And there is charging down in Roseville if I needed it. So, I could pull into a supercharger and top up if I actually was going to run low on charge. But yeah, I suspect that with this bill, a lot of the legacy companies are going to get more experience building hybrids than they do building full battery electric vehicles. I don't think Ford wants to sell very many of the F-150s because they're going to kill sales of the gasoline and diesel Ford F-150s. So they're putting it out there like, oh, well, we have hybrids, we have diesel, we have gas, we have electric, we have whatever kind you want, we've got it for you. And that's going to work for a while. But when people learn, per energy use or per mile, it costs about 20 cents on the dollar to power your vehicle with electricity compared to gasoline. Mm-hmm. So you're getting a 5x discount. And when you're driving a truck, you pay a lot of money on gasoline or fuel.
Yeah, especially now with fuel prices going up.
Yeah. And when you can cut, I don't know, I know friends up here and they're spending like $400 a month on fuel for their truck. And that's not even extreme. Some people pay $600. And so if you think about it, that's almost the payment on a vehicle. And
Yeah.
so if you could eliminate your fuel cost and put that toward payment of a vehicle, you could buy a much more expensive vehicle, especially if it's a truck. So I I mean, literally there was a calculation that the Model 2 that I think Tesla's going to build like millions of per year out of Austin, assuming this bill goes through. That vehicle, my God, it's destined to be maybe $25,000-$30,000 vehicle. So that means they'll probably offer it at 30 to 35,000, and then you get a 10,000 discount, so it'll be 20 to 25,000 cost. And then when you factor in that it's going to be worth essentially the same amount in the future when you sell it, because the incentive, 5 years will go away, and the price will go up, and it'll sell for 90% of the then retail price. It's going to basically, you're not going to lose any money. And compare that to a gasoline car that has depreciation plus all the costs of gasoline, oil changes, brake changes, because you don't have regenerative braking. Yeah, well, there's a guy has a channel called the Tesla Economist.
Okay.
And he does some real good shows. And he did an analysis, and you would have to pay someone, literally, you would have to give them a $25,000 gasoline car for free and pay them $5,000 in order to equal the purchase of a Tesla $25,000 car.
Yeah. So inevitably, it'll become a no-brainer just to switch over to electric vehicles. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. It's going to be a no-brainer. And in fact, it's going to come to the point that the cost of gasoline is going to be, on your old car, is going to be the same as the monthly payments plus electricity on a brand new electric car. And it's like, gee, do I want to keep driving this old thing around buying gas, or do I want to just have a nice new car? And so in about 2026, gasoline cars are just going to be scrapped like crazy from 26 through 30. And the production and manufacture of electric cars is going to skyrocket. So we're going to see the first of that happening next year, 2022, when Berlin and Austin open up. And then tunnels, I expect tunnels are going to be under 44,000 miles of US interstate freeways. Everywhere there's a freeway, there's going to be a tunnel under it for electric vehicles. And if you, like someone in LA on I-405, it's about 80-mile long stretch from I-5 down towards San Diego up through over San Fernando or Sepulveda Pass into San Fernando Valley. That's probably, a best first place to put a tunnel. And the only vehicles that are going to be able to go into the tunnels are going to be electric vehicles. So if you commute along a course where a tunnel gets installed, you're going to want to be able to go into that tunnel and commute at 120 miles an hour, fully autonomous. You could watch a movie, read a book, do some work.
So that's a different incentive in addition to just the financial incentive, is just getting your time back on commutes.
Exactly. You're going to get your time back. And it's, there'll be a toll. I expect that the tunnels probably charge a 20 cents per mile toll, which is how much you're paying for gasoline right now.
Do you think that toll would be able to fund the entire project?
Yes, and I thought of another analogy to explain how enormously huge tunnels are going to be. So I'm going to use a lemonade stand.
Okay.
So let's pretend you're an entrepreneurial kid. Well, in our engineering school, we had a coffee donut stand in the morning, which probably made about this much. Anyway, let's just call it a lemonade stand, doesn't matter. And let's suppose it costs you $100 to buy the stand and the mixers and, you know, all the stuff and glasses and whatnot. And then you start selling lemonade, and the amount of money you have coming in, you understand a financial accounting, time value of money?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the amount of money you have coming in receipts is equal to a net present value of $500. Okay, so you spend 100, spend a little time getting the business going, and then the amount of income is worth $500 in a time amortized way.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is that you now can go to a bank, get a loan, and you can build 5 new stands, and then each of them after a little while is worth $500. So it's a 5x positive feedback on invested capital.
And is that the kind of returns that you're seeing to get for these tunnels?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I expect the tunnels to get. Now,
I mean, if that's the return, then I'll invest.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a no-brainer. So it's not going to happen until it happens, because right now nobody knows that. You know, I know it because I've done the calculations. I know what can be done, and but no one else has bothered to do these calculations. I don't even think Elon Musk has done them, and Steve Davis, I don't think he's done them. And I say that because the Boring Company for Elon is kind of the poor stepchild company.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pet project.
Yeah, it's like, I'm pissed at traffic. It's driving me nuts. I'm just going to start digging, you know. And when he first contemplated tunnels, I looked at it and thought, well, that seems like a really dumb idea. But I have 45 US patents, and it's like what I've done all of my life is explore possible futuristic technologies. And so, you know, tunnels, okay, that doesn't exist today. Maybe it is a good idea. I don't know. It sounds stupid, but I'll look into it. So I started doing the calculations of throughput and how much you could earn in toll revenue, and why would people want to do it? You know, well, I've been to LA. I grew up in Oakland, and traffic is hell.
Yeah.
And all around the world. And if there were a way to get out of it, I mean, I've gotten off of highways and driven country roads that I knew exist, where I spend longer on the stupid country road than sitting in the stop and go traffic, just because the stop and go traffic was torture. If there's a way out of stop and go traffic, people are going to take it. And when you can zip at 120 miles an hour, you're not going to go back to 20 miles an hour stop and go. It's not going to happen. One tunnel under I-405 in each direction can carry up to 4 lanes of traffic.
Okay.
Think about that. You got a 5, 6, 7 lane freeway. You could fit in a single tunnel 4 lanes of traffic, and you can always bore multiple tunnels. So wherever you install one tunnel, the traffic on the freeway will empty to the point that there is no more stop and go traffic on the surface freeway.
Well, just a question with that though is I've seen studies that show that adding more lanes of traffic doesn't necessarily alleviate congestion, mostly because people who weren't previously driving are now driving because it becomes more viable. Do you see that becoming a problem?
Nope, not at all. Yes, people always shift over to wherever the least traffic is.
Mm-hmm.
But in Los Angeles, for example, they should build about 1,000 miles of tunnels under all of their main freeways. And when they do that, all of the main artery freeways will be emptied of a, probably 25% of the traffic will go down into the tunnels. Maybe it's 50%. But it'll be enough that during rush hour times, there is no stop and go traffic anymore. And even if you did wind up with a tunnel somewhere like 405 that is so heavily traveled that it's starting to be impacted, then you just build a second tunnel there. So you can build unlimited numbers of tunnels underground. There's tons of room down there. And it's cheap. I think you even noticed that it costs, for the Hawthorne tunnel, costs about $10 million per mile to build a tunnel. But when they get better at it, it'll cost about $10 million per bidirectional mile, so per pair of tunnels.
Okay.
Per mile. They're at about 10 million per mile of a tunnel now, and there'll be 5 million per lane mile of tunnel someday in the future. This is kind of, the realm we're in. Right now, today in California, it costs about $45 million per lane mile to widen a surface freeway. And the average across the US is about 25 million, if I remember the numbers right. So it's far cheaper to build a tunnel than it is a surface lane on a freeway. The next thing is, if you think about it, tunnels are just incredibly safe. There's no such thing as head-on crash into another car or head-on crash into a barrier, because there aren't any. And so, the worst you could do is skid off of the walls and come to a skidding halt if a tire blew and, your car went out of control.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't crash. Cars are made safe enough that you can head on into somebody and still survive. So in a tunnel, there's just no danger at all. And and another one, I'll just mention it because everybody brings it up, is earthquakes. Oh my God, what happens if there's an earthquake? Well, tunnels are the safest place to be during an earthquake. Where you don't want to be is up on the surface, where the surface waves are throwing things around.
Mm-hmm.
The one exception to that would be if the tunnel literally crossed like the San Andreas Fault, and the San Andreas Fault slipped 10 feet. Well, okay, there you've got a dead end in the tunnel, and there'll be a crash, just like there was when the Bay Bridge section collapsed. So stuff happens when bad earthquakes happen. But
yeah, I would hope that the engineers would look towards that when designing a tunnel going across the San Andreas Fault.
Yeah, exactly. You would hope they would. Yeah, I'm sure they would do something if they knew it. But worst case, if they went across some fault they didn't know was there and the thing did slip, yes, there will be a problem there. But vehicles are going to see it and stop, and or maybe one vehicle's going to crash and every other vehicle's going to see it and slam emergency brakes. Another thing is all the vehicles will be in communication with the tunnel, and the tunnel with the vehicles. So
Mm-hmm.
if an emergency happens, the tunnel's going to send out a command to all vehicles, hey, stop and reverse and go out at such and such an exit. And interestingly, that was one of the maneuvers that they practice at Las Vegas Convention Center. Is I saw an interview of one of the drivers, and he said that part of their training was they had to be able to back out of the entire tunnel system. So they had to drive the car backwards all the way out. And that's what you would have. You would have an accident with one vehicle that's crashed and blocks the tunnel, and the vehicles that were ahead of it will continue down the road and they'll be gone. So emergency service vehicles, tow trucks, whatever, can come in the tunnel backwards from ahead of the vehicle and get right to the disabled vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And all vehicles behind that disabled vehicle will need to back out, and then once they're out of the system, then emergency vehicles can come in from the other side of the vehicle.
Yeah, it'd be like a crash on a bridge or similar.
Exactly. You know, it's not like it's rocket science. This is something we know how to do.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think we're coming to time pretty soon here, but I guess, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we dismiss?
Yeah, what I would say is that we're in a really, really special time in the history of mankind and transportation, and electric vehicles and full self-driving doesn't exist yet, but it's coming. I use autopilot daily and it's fabulous. I mean, it slows down and lane keeps and all of that.
That's exciting.
That's all that's out there. But electric cars are simply superior. And because of that, they will win. And so all of the companies will either learn how to build better electric vehicles or they will go bankrupt. And so far, every single vehicle entered by legacy companies, and this means the new EF-150, it means the Mach-E, it means EQC, Audi e-tron, I mean, I'll go all the way down the list.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them has specifications that are inferior to the Tesla specifications. And so it doesn't mean that, those cars won't sell, they will, but they won't sell in as high a numbers as Tesla. And then if tunnels come in, and we're really close to tunnels becoming a thing. Right now, they're not a thing. Everybody gets to laugh at them because they don't exist. Like that simulation that you showed.
Oh, yeah.
It's not real because you don't have to go fast. All you have to do is have a short time distance between vehicles. If you have a 1 second time distance between vehicles at 3 passengers per car, that's over 10,000 passengers per hour. So the 4,400 is conservative, and they've already passed it. Tunnels are just going to be the way that we're going to do it. It's like, if I want to go to LA from here in Grass Valley, I'll be able to drive down to Sacramento with my car and just program and tell it, take me to LA, and it'll drive into the tunnel and zip up to 120 miles an hour and take care of the driving while I'm watching a movie and kicking back and relaxing, having some food and whatever I want to do. And then I'll get there in 3.5 hours instead of 9. So that's going to happen everywhere. But it's not going to happen anywhere until after it happens somewhere first.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're going to see is a lot of criticism and a lot of FUD because all of the auto companies want Tesla to do bad. All of the oil companies want Tesla to do bad. All of the media outlets want Tesla to do bad because Tesla doing good is bad for their paying customers. And so you have to really, really watch out what you hear and what you believe. Like there was just, the classic one that Gordon Johnson does all the time that's just hilarious is he'll, every quarter on the first month of the quarter, he'll point out that sales in Norway dropped by 50%. Well, that's because they only ship a boat over once a quarter and it arrives the third month of the quarter. So they have sales the third month and they don't have sales the first month. You know,
The numbers rarely tell the full story.
yeah. So you got to just be careful. All I can tell you is electric vehicles are coming. Tunnels are also coming. I think tunnels will accelerate the pace of electric vehicles because that $500 lemonade stand example, if you can build that tunnel along I-405 would probably cost close to $1 billion, but the total revenue from it will be worth $5 billion in net present value. And Bechtel and Boring Company and every big commercial company capable of building tunnels and running big projects are going to want to build toll tunnels and then operate them because it's going to be positive cash.
Money machines, yeah.
It's going to be a money machine, a huge money machine. And so they're going to want to build them as fast as possible. And all around the world is going to want them because everywhere has traffic jam problems. So the fact that you have lots of construction companies capable of building these things, once it's known how profitable they are, they're going to get built everywhere. And then to use them, you have to buy an EV. And there'll be just no way. So as much as I love gasoline engine technologies, it's going to die a real rapid death, surprisingly.
The times are changing.
Yeah, the legacy companies think it's going to be 20 years and they'll be down to 50%. It's not. They're going to be dead in 5 to 10 years with the gasoline part of their business.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
They learn to transition to electric, otherwise.
Exactly. Adapt or die, I guess.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much, Ross. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on.